And now, two fighters, unbeaten, undefeated, have entered the ring. Only one will emerge victorious. Somebody's has got to go. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
All right, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Jay, back in the house. This time I'm bringing you guys Boxing's Greatest Undefeated Battles Volume 2. If you guys have not had a chance to go check out Volume 1, I'm going to go post a link, and you guys can go check out Volume 1. And I wanted to make Volume 2 because there was a whole bunch more other fights that I missed that I actually wanted to talk about in Volume 1. But I'm going to talk about some other great fights in Volume 2. And the reason why undefeated battles are my favorite in boxing is because boxing is a unique sport where, you know, once you lose, you know, you can't get your so-called zero back. Once it's gone, it's gone. And so it makes for a very more entertaining, competitive fight when both fighters are undefeated. So if you guys haven't got a chance to go check out Volume 1, go check out Volume 1 and then come back to Volume 2. But I'm not going to try to spend too much time on each fight. I'm going to briefly cover 8 fights. So here we go with the first fight. Okay, first fight I want to talk about is the fight that took place between Sugar Ray Leonard versus Wilfred Benitez. This fight happened on November 30th in Caesars Palace in Las Vegas, Nevada. This was for the WBC welterweight title. And this would be the fight where Sugar Ray Leonard won his very first world title. Throughout this fight, it was a very tight, competitive fight. Sugar Ray Leonard was coming to this fight ranked number 2 contender, while Benitez was obviously the champion. This fight ended with Sugar Ray Leonard knocking down Benitez, where he would get up, and then Benitez was stopped by the referee from an onslaught of Sugar Ray Leonard punches in the final closing seconds in round 15. This performance would give Sugar Ray Leonard Fighter of the Year for 1979. Okay, next fight I want to talk about is Larry Holmes versus Ronaldo Snipes. This fight took place on November 6, 1981 in the Civic Arena in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Larry Holmes had a hometown advantage going into this fight because he was from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This fight was for the WBC World Heavyweight Championship, while Ronaldo Snipes was his number 1 challenger for that title at that time. Larry Holmes would get knocked down in the 7th round, where he would get back up. And Holmes would fight his way back in round 11 to give a highly controversial stoppage to Ronaldo Snipes in round 11, where this fight is still highly controversial and is still highly talked about today. In the post-fight interview of this fight, there was a lot of Ronaldo Snipes was very, very angry of the decision, and it would later go on to, you know, fights between both camps, between Snipes and Holmes, but still, Larry Holmes is still recognized one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. Alright, so going on to number 3. Donald Curry versus Lloyd Hunnigan. This fight took place on September 27th, 1986 at the Caesars Palace in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Going into this fight, Lloyd Hunnigan was 27-0 and ranked number 1 by the WBC. This was for the undisputed welterweight championship of the world. Donald Curry was going to this fight as the very huge favorite. Prior to the fight, Donald Curry had weight-making issues, which reflected him in the fight, where he would suddenly lose his legs during the fight. There was an accidental headbutt caused by Lloyd Hunnigan late in the 6th round, which caused the fight to be stopped by the ringside physician. This fight would later become the Ring Magazine Upset of the Year for 1986. Okay, next fight. The fight that took place between James Toney versus Michael Nunn. This fight took place on May 10th, 1991 in the John O'Donnell Stadium in Davenport, Iowa. James Toney would capture the IBF middleweight title championship in the 11th round by a stunning left monstrous hook. What was significant about this fight was that Michael Nunn was ahead on the scorecards very, very much. Nunn would get up from that left hook only to get stopped again. This is one of James Toney's best wins out of his whole entire career. Not only that, he also went to Michael Nunn's backyard because Michael Nunn was actually from Iowa as well. Alright, so next fight I want to talk about is Bowe versus Evander Holyfield. This fight took place on November 13th, 1992 in the Thomas & Mack Center in Las Vegas, Nevada. Prior to this fight, Evander Holyfield had notable wins over Larry Holmes, George Foreman, and Buster Douglas. Holyfield was the WBC, WBA, IBF, and lineal heavyweight champion of the world. Bowe would win this fight by 12-round unanimous decision. It would later become Ring Magazine Fight of the Year for 1992. This fight would later go on to a rematch where Evander Holyfield avenged his loss. They'll also go on to a trilogy. This was considered one of the best trilogies in heavyweight boxing history. Okay, number 6. Roy Jones versus James Toney. This fight was billed as the Uncivil War, and it took place on November 18th, 1994 at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. Going to this fight, Roy Jones was 26-0. James Toney was an outstanding 44-0. James Toney would lose this fight by 12-round unanimous decision. This was James Toney's 4th defense at super middleweight. The difference of the factors of this fight was the speed of Roy Jones and his unpredictable style proved too much for James Toney. Alright, number 7. Fernando Vargas versus Felix Trinidad. This fight took place on December 2nd, 2000 at the Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas, Nevada. It was a unification bout for the WBA and the IBF light middleweight championships. This was a very tough, grueling fight. Trinidad would knock down Fernando Vargas in the very first round. Later on, Felix Trinidad would actually then get knocked down in the 4th round. And then after that, eventually Fernando Vargas would actually give a cut over Trinidad's right eye, and Trinidad kept fighting hard. Trinidad would eventually knock down Fernando Vargas in the 12th and final round, and what was one of the most exciting fights of that year. Felix Trinidad is still widely considered one of the highly most praised welterweights of all time, and is now recently just got inducted into the Hall of Fame. Last and final fight was the fight that took place not that long ago between Floyd Mayweather versus Saul Canelo Alvarez. This fight took place on September 14th, 2013 at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. This fight was billed as called the One. This super fight is the richest prize fight ever in boxing history. Saul Canelo Alvarez was ranked #1 junior middleweight at that time and #9 pound for pound, where Floyd Mayweather was ranked #1 pound for pound. The titles on the line in this fight were the WBC and the WBA super welterweight titles. Mayweather would go on to win this fight by a majority decision, but most of the boxing world thought that Floyd Mayweather had won a very unanimous decision. Floyd Mayweather would receive $41.5 million, and after the pay-per-view sales, he would earn over $80 million. Floyd Mayweather, till this day, is considered the highest paid athlete by Forbes for 2012 and 2013 and he is still #1 pound for pound best fighter in the world.